In the bitter heart of Moscow, a decaying warehouse stood in frozen silence. Snow seeped through shattered windows as a drone buzzed slowly through the cavernous space, its searchlight casting long shadows across rusted steel and forgotten crates. The air was electric with tension. Suddenly, a precise bullet split the air, striking the drone mid-hover. Sparks burst as the machine spiraled down and slammed into the cold concrete. From the shadows emerged a man dressed in black tactical gear, his face masked beneath a hood. Every movement was deliberate, every step measured. His name was Darius Black, once a legend in the intelligence world, long presumed dead. He moved like a phantom, each stride calculated to avoid detection. His eyes swept the warehouse with unrelenting focus. A small device slid from his gloved hand, landing silently near an exposed console. With a short pulse, it sent out an EMP wave, instantly disabling all nearby electronics. Monitors died. Lights flickered and went dark. The silence returned, but not for long. Outside the warehouse, an armored SUV sat idling. Inside, a team of mercenaries received the signal. Their equipment powered down simultaneously, their weapons flickering with brief interference. They understood instantly, or someone was inside. Their commander, a cold-eyed Russian named Ivan Grigorov, signaled the team to advance. The soldiers, trained in urban warfare, slipped into formation and approached the building on within.As north entrance. Inside, Darius moved swiftly. He disarmed the first guard with surgical precision, rendering him unconscious in seconds. A second, man fell before he could even raise his weapon. Using shadows as his allies, Darius navigated the space like a specter, reaching a sealed container in the heart of the warehouse. Inside glowed 3 vials filled with a luminous blue fluid labeled Our Project Nova. He secured the case with practiced hands. The crack of a sniper shot tore through the silence. The round missed by inches, striking a pipe overhead. Darius dropped to the ground and rolled behind a crate. He didn't attempt to hesitate. A hidden exit near the storage racks offered a narrow escape route. He bolted through it and vanished into the snowy alleys beyond the complex, blending with the darkness as though he had never been there. Thousands of miles away in the controlled chaos of Langley-TM's intelligence nerve center, analysts scanned the grainy footage pulled from satellite links and nearby security cams. Facial recognition flagged the footage. It matched someone the agency had classified as dead. The analysts paused, brows furrowed. Something didn't add up. Reports were filed, alerts sent. A decision was made to reactivate a dormant case file known only to a handful of people. Operation Phantom. In Berlin, within the concrete silence of a safe house, Darius cleaned a wound on his left arm. The gash was shallow, but the pain was familiar. He moved with muscle memory, treating it with makeshift supplies while watching a low-quality video loop on a secure burner phone. Every frame revealed patterns, movements, and clues. After a brief moment, he tucked the phone away and reached into a hidden drawer. A broken silver badge lay inside, fractured down the middle. He stared at it, his expression unreadable. The past whispered through the metal. A memory surged. Fire and betrayal. In the flickering heat of a Turkish black site 5 years earlier, chaos reigned. Gunfire echoed through metal corridors. The mission, meant to retrieve a prototype weapon, had gone catastrophically wrong. Darius remembered the final betrayal, a teammate raising his sidearm and firing at point-blank range. He had felt the impact, the blood, and the darkness closing in. But he had not died. Instead, he had disappeared, swallowed by smoke and buried in a lie. Now, back in the present, the man responsible for that betrayal, Rex Langdon, thrived in the high towers of Dubai. The ex-agent had transformed into a private contractor, wealthy and protected. Langdon within.As current associate was a brilliant and ethically unbound scientist named Dr. Yara Noor. Together, they were finalizing the next stage of Project Nova. The bioweapon was now, just, a chemical formula. It was an evolving system capable of precision-based genetic targeting, What had once been a covert CIA asset had now fallen into the wrong hands. As the night deepened, Darius infiltrated a private airstrip on the outskirts of Berlin. The plan was audacious. Stop the transfer of Project Nova before it left European airspace. Armed with minimal gear and the weight of a past unresolved, he slipped past surveillance, took down guards with fluid efficiency, and boarded the cargo plane minutes before takeoff. Inside the aircraft, the tension escalated. In a narrow corridor lined with crates, Darius engaged a hostile guard. The fight was brutal and close, or metal against flesh, fists cracking bone. He disarmed his opponent and moved deeper into the hold. Rows of reinforced crates lined the space, each marked with the same eerie glow from earlier. He forced one open to confirm its contents. More vials of the glowing blue compound. Then, a trap. Langdon appeared in the rear of the plane. The aircraft jolted as a sudden burst of gunfire struck one of the hydraulic lines. Warning sirens shrieked. Smoke filled the cargo bay. A firefight erupted inside the doomed aircraft as pressure dropped and the plane dipped violently toward the Black Sea. With chaos all around, Darius fought his way through the hold, avoiding bullets and debris. The cargo door burst open from structural damage, sucking crates into the sky. He anchored himself with a harness as the wind howled around him. Moments later, the aircraft crashed into icy waters. Flames licked the surface of the sea, casting orange shadows on the night. Metal wreckage floated atop dark waves. A single hand broke through the surface, grasping onto a crate. Darius pulled himself out of the freezing waters, one arm clinging to a satchel containing a single Nova vial. Soaked, injured, and exhausted, he lay flat against the drifting debris. His chest rose and fell slowly. His breath was steam in the air. Above, the stars remained indifferent, but something inside him had changed. He had returned, not for redemption, not for revenge, but to finish what had been started. The ghost was back. Waves rolled across the Black Sea, scattering the last remnants of the wreckage. The night clung to the horizon, painted in smudges of smoke and the flicker of burning fuel. A single figure clung to a drifting cargo panel, battered and frostbitten, but alive. Darius Black, soaked to the bone and bruised, dragged himself atop the wreckage. The cold bit deep into his flesh, but his grip never loosened on the satchel tied to his chest. The Nova vial still intact within. As the moon dipped low, distant lights shimmered from a fishing vessel unaware of the silent war unfolding beneath the surface of global awareness. Darius lay still until the ship faded from view, then kicked weakly toward a narrow rock formation jutting from the sea miles from any coast. Hours passed. Blood loss clouded his thoughts, but the cold kept him sharp enough to survive. Near dawn, he crawled into a coastal cave, collapsed against the frozen stone, and fell into uneasy unconsciousness. Memory returned in waves, training, missions, faces long gone. Then, the explosion, the searing betrayal, the fall, the darkness. By the time he awoke, the storm had passed, leaving a stark silence. His body ached. Muscles screamed with each movement, but survival was second nature. Using remnants of wiring from the crashed aircraft and a survival blade strapped to his ankle, he fashioned a makeshift sling, secured his dislocated shoulder, and limped toward an old smuggler within.As path he remembered from years past. The journey across the rural hills of northeastern Turkey was long and brutal. He moved through forests, crossed icy rivers, and avoided border patrols. The route was familiar, etched into memory during Black Ops operations the world would never acknowledge. Days blurred into each other. Nights were spent in ruined, shepherd huts or beneath trees, feeding on dried rations stolen from abandoned military checkpoints. Eventually, he reached an old contact point near Trabzona, a crumbling safe house beneath a shuttered textile mill. Inside, he retrieved a sealed weapons cache, long buried and forgotten. The gear was outdated, but it would do. He replaced his ruined clothes with tactical attire, strapped a sidearm to his leg, and examined a low-power satellite tracker. The signal he found on it was faint, but real. Project Nova had not been destroyed in the crash. Only a sample had been recovered. The rest had been transported elsewhere. His enemies were still one step ahead. From a cracked laptop powered by a jury-rigged generator, Darius accessed encrypted black market data links, satellite pings, cargo transfers, chemical shipment anomalies. His search was clinical and relentless. Finally, a name surfaced in coded manifests. Al-Azhar Biotech, a private research compound buried in the sands of central Libya, operated by proxies, guarded by mercenaries, funded through layers of shell corporations. Darius studied satellite images of the facility. High walls, drone nests, underground vaults, a fortress masked as a lab. The final piece was a signature A heat scan showing the containment profile for the Nova compound. The chemical TM's radiation signature was unique, traceable only to someone who had been exposed to it before. His body. He uploaded a sample profile from his own blood years ago, preserved in the cache TM's microdrive. The match was Karstarlander was there. Thousands of kilometers away, the Libyan sun blazed across white sands as a sleek convoy rolled through the gates of the Al-Azhar facility. Inside the largest vehicle, Langdon monitored progress from behind mirrored glasses, reviewing security feeds and biometric scans. The facility bustled with activity. Scientists ran final simulations. Engineers modified containment systems. Armed, guards patrolled the perimeter in overlapping loops. In the observation chamber beneath the central dome, rows of stasis tubes held biogenetic weapons in suspension. Nova samples shimmered with unnatural energy. Monitors displayed charts in Arabic and French. Dr. Yara Noor moved through the lab in silence, recording notes, adjusting settings. She wore a sterile lab coat, but her eyes were cold with ambition. Years of research had led to this moment of the final prototype. A virus that could be programmed to target entire genetic lines with terrifying precision. No vaccine, no cure. Just silent, controlled eradication. Back in Turkey, Darius fueled a stolen military dirt bike, loaded his pack, and disappeared once again into the mountains. He traveled south through Syria, moving between ghost towns, evading militia, patrols bribing smugglers for silence. The bike was abandoned at the edge of the Libyan border. From there, he moved on foot under cover of night. 2 days later, hidden beneath the rocks of a dune overlooking the Al-Azhar compound, he scouted the perimeter through high-powered optics. Every detail mattered. Guard rotations, sensor blind, spots, entry points. The facility was not just fortified, it was alive with suspicion. He buried himself beneath sand during the day, emerging only after nightfall. Using thermal camouflage and repurposed tech from the downed cargo plane, he bypassed the outer perimeter. One wrong move and drones would shred him. One wrong shadow, and spotlights would find him. He advanced slowly, entering through an unsealed maintenance duct forgotten by the last inspection team. Inside, he moved through ventilation shafts, ghosting above guards and technicians. The compound was colder than the desert outside. Metal, sterile, unforgiving. He reached the research level and crawled behind a pipe leading to the chamber he had seen from satellite scans. Beyond the glass, he saw the stasis tubes, rows of them, each containing the pulsing glow of chemical death. As he prepared to descend, a sudden tremor passed through the structure. An internal alert. Not for him. Something had been triggered elsewhere. From above, Langdon watched the alert with mild amusement. His security team had discovered another intruder on the opposite side of the facility, an amateur hacker trying to breach the outer firewalls. A distraction, perhaps unconnected, perhaps not. Regardless, his mind was on other things. The final phase of Nova TM's activation was within reach. All he needed now was the catalyst or an organic sample previously exposed to Nova TM's prototype. Only one such subject existed: Darius Black. In the control room, Dr. Noor examined a heat scan. A faint signature. Familiar. Very faint. But it moved. Her hand hovered over the emergency lockdown. Below, Darius reached the access door to the primary chamber and connected an encrypted drive to the panel. Security protocols began to fall one by one, but before he could complete the override, the lights shifted to red. Magnetic locks sealed. A thud echoed behind him. Gas hissed from the ceiling vents. He was not alone. Motion in the hallway. Boots, flashlights, drones hovering. Reinforcements approached. Trapped in a steel corridor, Darius turned to flee, only to find both exits sealed. But he moved anyway, improvising, redirecting, creating a spark with a grenade cartridge against exposed piping. The blast ripped open a side wall, enough to squeeze through before the fire-suppressant foam filled the hallway. He dropped down into a maintenance shaft, rolled through the flames, and emerged in a side lab. Alarms blared above. The hunt was on, but he had seen enough. The Nova weapon was real. And now they knew he was coming. As the compound descended into lockdown, Darius faded into the underbelly of the desert, vanishing into sand and silence. Behind him the lab burned, not with fire, but with the panic of recognition. The ghost was not only alive, he was moving. The Libyan night, once warm and serene, was now fractured by motion. High above the desert, drones pulsed red as they crisscrossed the dark sky in rigid patterns. Far below, sensors lit the sand in thin blue arcs, searching for one man. Darius, black eye wounded, marked but unrelenting, crawled across scorched rock toward a jagged canyon that disappeared into the Saharan abyss. Behind him, the Al-Azhar compound tightened its grip. Internal security forces combed the facility, scanning ducts and sealed labs, but their quarry was already miles away, carving his way through wind and sand. Beneath layers of tactical cloth and camouflage netting, his breath came slow and steady. He had been hunted before. This was nothing new. He reached a makeshift cave cut into the canyon wall, partially collapsed by time and forgotten by maps. Inside, beneath the cool stone, he cleaned his wounds with desert water drawn from a metal canteen. His skin was torn, his muscles fatigued, but his mind was razor sharp. He unrolled a compact satellite link embedded into a vest pouch and activated it. The device, coded to old declassified channels, gave him a partial feed from a ghost relay satellite once used by special reconnaissance teams in Africa. What he saw chilled him more than the desert winds. Inside Al-Azhar, Langdon had activated Nova or TM's early-stage field deployment. The compound Durasurmoy TM's stasis tubes were now empty. Containers were being moved by convoy. Coordinates fed into Black Arrows. TM's terminal showed 3 destinations across North Africa: Tripoli, Algiers, and an unknown off-grid site buried deep within, the Sahel. Each route ran through hostile territory protected by drones, mercenary convoys, and black market warlords. Darius zoomed in on one truck flagged with an encrypted transponder. That one mattered most. It was no TMTT just cargo. It was mobile activation hardware. If Langdon reached the final site, Nova would know TM'd just be tested. It would be unleashed. By morning, Darius had stolen a rugged all-terrain vehicle from a local warlord, TM's depot. He moved like smoke, avoiding cameras, planting decoys. Once behind the wheel, he roared across dunes at speeds that defied terrain. The desert was cruel, but he was relentless. At night, he navigated by starlight. By day, he buried the vehicle beneath solar blankets and waited. He hunted the convoy not with speed but with purpose. 2 days later, near the Algerian border, he intercepted a recon drone and rigged it to follow the signal. Through its lens, he watched the convoy snake through a narrow canyon, its lead, truck bearing the Nova casing. He tracked their direction and mapped a point where the route narrowed, a place known for ancient rock falls and unpredictable wind. He arrived first. He planted charges along unstable cliff edges, carefully, calculating blast range and wind direction. Then he waited. Still. Silent. Sand covered his body. The sun dipped low, shadows stretched long, engines echoed across stone. The convoy approached, right on schedule. At the precise moment, he triggered the charges. A thunderous quake shattered the Canyon.As face. Boulders collapsed onto the roadway, crushing the escort vehicle. The rear truck screeched to a halt. Gunmen spilled out in chaos. Darius descended with speed and violence. His movements were swift and fluid. He disabled the nearest gunner with a blunt strike to the head, rolled beneath gunfire and slid a blade through a second man ATM's thigh before hurling him into the path of an oncoming jeep. The explosion rocked the convoy as stray rounds ignited a fuel line. Smoke and confusion worked in his favor. He reached the primary truck, climbed onto its cab, and shattered the windshield with his elbow. The driver stumbled back, disoriented. Darius dragged him out and took the wheel. Bullets whizzed past. Shouts echoed. The convoy was in disarray. Without hesitation, Darius gunned the engine, barreling through debris as flames licked the side panels. The truck careened forward, tires shredding against rock, speed building. Then freedom. He broke through the final barricade and vanished into the open desert, leaving ruin behind. That night he drove until the fuel gauge bled empty. Then he abandoned the truck in a ravine, removed the Nova casing and buried it beneath a rock marker. A brief rest followed. He ate, drank, and stitched a cut on his left arm. Then he was moving again. Meanwhile, in a towering skyscraper in Algiers, Langdon paced across polished floors. Through a private satellite uplink, he watched footage of the destroyed convoy. He said nothing, but his fury showed in clenched fists. Surveillance drones had lost the target in the storm. But one signal remained. The casing at TM's thermal signature had reappeared. Within hours, Langdon and TM's operatives began scouring the area. Helicopters swept canyons, ground teams deployed in circles. They found the truckamnus, but not the casing. Darius was already long gone. He reached an abandoned French Foreign Legion outpost hidden beneath desert cliffs. Once a prison, then a fortress, now just memory and dust. Inside, he uncovered an old satellite dish and reassembled it with gear from his pack. He activated a burst signal, a one-time code used only by agents considered beyond reach. In Langley, alarms went off. The Phantom protocol had been triggered. A satellite lens, locked onto the Sahel. Recon feeds showed unusual construction, a buried chamber reinforced with lead and concrete. Langdon TM's final location. The virus would be deployed from there, tested on controlled human populations under the guise of refugee aid. No more delays. Darius prepared for the final phase. He built a new infiltration kit from scavenged tech and warzone debris. He reinforced his armor with Kevlar patches and reprogrammed a stolen drone to serve as a mobile sensor jammer. His face remained hidden beneath a sand-scorched mask. He was no longer chasing ghosts. He had become one. As night fell once more, the wind howled through the ravine like a warning. Darius stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking a valley of darkness. Below him lay the facility, and within.As the endgame. Nightfall swallowed the Sahel in waves of silence. Winds howled through the barren ridges, carving shifting dunes like a sculptor lost in endless labor. Amidst this savage beauty, a silhouette emerged atop the cliffs, unmoving and watchful. Darius Black, armor dulled with desert grit, studied the enemy-dim stronghold from the jagged edge of a blackened escarpment. The wind clawed at his cloak, but he stood undisturbed, eyes fixed on the glowing bunker carved into the earth below. The final Nova facility. A subterranean vault, masked as an old relief station, was surrounded by concentric rings of security. Heat detection turrets rotated in synchronized rhythm. Quad-legged sentry drones patrolled the dust trails like wolves marking territory. Between them, mercenaries moved in overlapping paths, their boots stirring ancient bones buried beneath centuries of conflict. Darius moved just before midnight. He descended the cliffside with precision, scaling old erosion paths and slipping between dead trees. He avoided light, avoided noise, every movement calculated, every breath quiet. Upon reaching the outer perimeter, he waited beneath a fallen observation tower. The guards above laughed, smoked, unaware. He slid beneath their feet, crawled through the roots of an old acacia, and reached the buried conduit line that ran power into the compound. There, he planted a relay device was stolen days before, from a cartel cache in Algeria. The pulse disrupted the motion detectors for precisely 11 seconds, just long enough. He slipped through the breach. Inside, the terrain changed. Metal replaced sand. The inner perimeter had been carved from an old uranium mine, reinforced with concrete walls and sealed steel doors. The air grew thick with power and purpose. Darius moved low, sticking to shadows and drainage ducts, memorizing every inch of the patrol rhythm. He scaled a service ladder into the substructure, bypassing biometric locks using a dead operative IME-TM's severed glove retrieved during a silent ambush 2 hours earlier. In the control hub, Langdon reviewed satellite relays and biometric logs. A single red marker blinked intermittently, an old agent code pulsing near the outer corridor. Darius Black, still alive, still moving. Langdon TM's face remained unreadable as he activated the secondary lockdown. All non-essential. Systems shut down. Corridors narrowed. Automated defenses engaged. Darius saw the change instantly. Lights dimmed. Doors hissed. Lasers swept the hallways. He moved with urgency, rerouting through maintenance tunnels and vertical shafts. Explosions echoed behind him while deterrent mines meant to flush intruders. But he did not attempt to run. He shifted. He descended deeper. Below the main facility, the true vault opened like a forgotten tomb. The Nova chamber, reinforced with 3-foot alloy walls, buried beneath miles of stone. Inside, tanks pulsed with bioluminescent compounds. Each cylinder contained a variation of the virus. One for DNA targeting, one for neurosuppression, one for climate-activated dispersal. He entered through the upper ventilation shaft, crawling across metal beams high above the floor. Below, technicians in hazmat suits transferred vials into mobile casings. In the center of it all stood the Nova Primer, a canister wrapped in lead and sealed beneath a coated shell. He reached into his belt and pulled a magnetic coil device. It hummed softly as he activated it, tuning its frequency to the chemical compound TM's internal resonance. A soft click. A visual ping. Nova Prime pulsed in reply. Its location was confirmed. Extraction now possible. But something shifted. Security drones detected the pulse and reoriented. The alarm remained silent, but internal sensors rotated toward the ceiling. A thin red dot danced across the steel beam Darius was perched upon. He dropped just as the drone fired. Metal screamed. Sparks rained. He landed with a roll between 2 storage crates. Immediately, suppression foam began to flood the chamber. Lights strobed. Emergency shutters descended. The facility was sealing itself in. Darius sprinted forward, throwing a flash charge to blind the remaining guards. The floor vibrated as emergency drills descended from the walls, programmed to destroy the virus if containment failed. He reached Nova Prime just as a countdown began, 90 seconds to sterilization. He worked quickly. Attached the coil, disengaged the shell, bypassed the retinal lock with a simulated scan pulled from a fallen technician. TM's visor. 50 seconds. He secured the vial into a cryo case from his pack, locked it, and sprinted for the secondary lift shaft. 30 seconds. The doors didn't TM to open. Power had been cut. He ascended the elevator cables by hand, climbing through smoke and flashing sparks. The chamber below began to burn up, purged by fire. A wall of flame rose beneath him. He reached the surface duct just as the lower vault collapsed. Above, the inner facility had descended into chaos. Guards fired at shadows. Alarm klaxons shrieked. Surveillance was hacked from within, not by Darius, but by someone else. Unknown signals flickered through the network. Another force had entered the system. From a distant satellite station, a masked operator tapped out a command. The origin was untraceable, the effect immediate. The facility, TM's automated defense system, activated against its own men. Darius reached the upper compound and sprinted through the crossfire. Turrets turned on guards. Drones exploded in mid-air. The base had become a war zone of its own making. Amid the confusion, he reached the main hangar. Inside, a single VTOL aircraft waited, prepped for emergency extraction. He breached the side hatch, overrode the biometric lock, and powered up the engines. Just before liftoff, Langdon entered the bay, flanked by 2 armored soldiers. No words, no warnings, just weapons. Darius triggered a smoke bomb, darted from the cabin, rolled across the floor, and engaged the enemy in silence. The first soldier fell with a broken neck, the second with a knife to the spine. Langdon fired, missed, and was thrown back by a concussive charge from Darius TM's belt. The blast collapsed the ceiling. Darius climbed back into the VTOL, closed the hatch, and launched into the black sky. The hangar vanished beneath him, engulfed in dust and flame. Langdon TM's body was nowhere in sight, neither confirmed nor dead. But irrelevant for now. He set coordinates for a black site extraction point buried in the Sahara. The VTOL groaned from damage, but it flew. In the back compartment, the cryo case hummed, stable, Nova Prime, secured. Above the desert, the stars flickered like eyes watching from beyond. But the war wasn't TMTT over. It was only changing shape. The VTOL trembled through turbulent skies, its engines strained and groaning under the weight of the stolen cargo. Outside, the Sahara stretched endlessly. A vast ocean of shifting sand and stone, cracked earth scorched by a merciless sun. Inside, Darius Black sat motionless, eyes narrowed and scanning digital readouts flickering from the cracked control panel. The cryo case hummed steadily beside him, the Nova Prime vial secured like a dangerous treasure. His mind was a fortress of memories and resolve, years of combat, betrayals, losses, each etched into the sinews of his being. The mission was far from over. The vial I'm1 TME's containment was fragile, but its potential catastrophic. Somewhere out there, Langdon TM's forces were regrouping, hunting for him like predators stalking wounded prey. The VTOL TM's communication systems were silent, jammed by an unknown signal that prevented any calls or transmissions. Isolation was both a blessing and a curse. No reinforcements, no backup, just the desert and a ticking time bomb. Ahead, a black site appeared on the HUD, an underground complex abandoned decades ago, hidden beneath an ancient meteor crater. The Deer landing zone was narrow, scattered rocks, steep ridges, and shifting sand dunes. Darius piloted the aircraft with practiced precision, skimming low to avoid detection. The VTOL touched down in a cloud of dust and grit. Engines powered down, the hum ceased. Darius exited swiftly, hauling the cryo case with practiced care. The complex TM's entrance was concealed beneath rubble and rusted metal sheets, but years ago he had memorized its layout secret. Tunnels, ventilation shafts, emergency caches. Inside, the air was stale and thick with dust. Dim emergency lights flickered faintly, powered by backup batteries. He moved through the halls like a shadow, navigating by instinct. His first priority was to set up a secure lab to analyze Nova Prime. Using equipment scavenged from the cargo and pre-positioned caches, he assembled a mobile containment field generator designed to stabilize volatile biochemicals. The device hummed with low power, its field shielding the cryo case from environmental fluctuations. With careful hands, Darius accessed a built-in analyzer, scanning the vial TM's contents. At a molecular level, the virus was alive, a mouse adaptable, evolving. Its synthetic genome was engineered to react to specific environmental triggers and host DNA. Once unleashed, Nova would spread rapidly, altering biology and ecology in catastrophic ways. This was no ordinary weapon. This was extinction. Hours passed. The desert sun rose and fell outside the complex of within.As thick concrete walls. Darius continued his research, cross-referencing data from encrypted Black Ops archives embedded within his tablet. His expression darkened as he uncovered chilling information. Nova was only the first step. Langdon Darius' true plan was far more insidious. A global reset, using viral bioweapons to dismantle entire populations under the guise of natural pandemics. Suddenly, the secure TM's power flickered, an external override. The jamming signal intensified. Intruders were near. Darius moved swiftly to the perimeter sensors, activating countermeasures. His years of training made him a master of improvisation. Using the complex within.As ventilation shafts and shadowed corridors, he prepared for the inevitable. Minutes later, a violent storm raged outside, thunder ripping across the sky. Lightning illuminated the desert in jagged flashes. The approaching footsteps echoed heavy, deliberate, armed mercenaries Langdon-TM's elite. The first breach was violent. A shattered door, a flash grenade tossed into the hall. Darius was ready. Using environmental control systems, he released a thick cloud of cryomist, freezing the air and slowing the enemy-TM's advance. Shadows moved slower, breath visible in sudden cold. He struck like a specter. A hand grasped his ankle, but he twisted, snapping the attacker-TM's wrist. Another charged with a rifle, only to meet a brutal elbow to the jaw. The fight was silent, savage. Every motion precise, every strike calculated. He fell back through the complex, drawing them deeper into a maze of catacombs and hidden chambers. In one corridor, he rigged a makeshift EMP from a circuit board and detonator, obliterating nearby surveillance and electronics. Darkness enveloped the hall, giving him cover. The mercenaries fired blindly. Panic grew in their ranks. Darius found a narrow shaft leading to a lower level of the complex-TM's forgotten bunker. He dropped into the blackness and rolled silently, using a handheld infrared scanner to navigate. Below, the temperature dropped. The cryogenerator hummed weakly. The Nova vial-TM's resonance pulsed faintly. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the scanner-TM's glow, a woman. Clad in dark tactical gear, she moved with stealth and efficiency. She did not speak. Their eyes met briefly. Mutual recognition in a world where trust was extinct. Without hesitation, she joined his side, pulling a suppressed pistol. Together they moved forward, an unspoken alliance forged in the fires of necessity. The woman was a ghost in the system, a rogue operative known only by codename TM. Her knowledge of Langdon-TM's network was invaluable. They shared no words, only synchronized actions. As the mercenaries regrouped above, Darius and Shade navigated to an emergency extraction point deep within the bunker. Along the way, they uncovered data drives, encrypted files revealing Langdon-TM's next target, a global distribution network poised to deploy Nova samples via humanitarian aid shipments. Time was running out. Darius set charges on key structural points within the bunker to delay pursuit. He carried the cryo case with renewed urgency. Shade monitored tactical feeds, guiding him through escape routes. Outside, the desert storm escalated. Sandstorm winds howled, erasing footprints and masking movement. They emerged from the bunker, just as explosions shook the earth behind them, collapsing tunnels and sealing their pursuers inside. With no vehicles and limited supplies, Darius and Shade disappeared into the storm-TM's embrace. Ahead lay the open desert, unforgiving, endless, and dangerous. But with Nova Prime in hand and Langdon-TM's plans exposed, their mission had transformed. No longer was it just survival. Now it was war. The desert storm raged on like an ancient beast, swallowing the horizon in waves of sand and darkness. Darius Black and Shade moved with ghost-like speed, silhouettes swallowed by the swirling chaos. Their breaths were shallow, hearts pounding, in rhythm with the distant thunder. Above, lightning split the sky like furious scars. Time was no longer measured by hours, but by the pounding rhythm of survival. The open desert was a labyrinth of shifting dunes and hidden traps. Beneath the roaring storm, the world was erased. Only instinct and survival guided their steps. Each movement was careful, every shadow a potential threat. The cryo case containing Nova Prime was secured tightly in Darius TM's grip, its faint hum a constant reminder of the apocalypse they carried. Ahead lay the extraction point, an old airstrip abandoned decades ago, surrounded by cliffs and dead trees bleached by sun and wind. It was their last hope, a fragile lifeline to a contact who could get them off the continent and out of TM's reach. The coordinates burned in their memories as fiercely as the mission itself. The storm was both cover and curse. Darius TM's eyes narrowed beneath the mask, scanning for danger. Their pursuers were relentless. Langdon TM's elite trackers, armed with the latest tech, combed the desert for any sign. But the storm swallowed their trails. Tracks vanished. Signals scrambled. The storm became a veil, hiding the hunters and the hunted alike. The sound of engines cut through the tempesta. A black helicopter cutting low, searching sweeping spotlights that barely penetrated the sand. Darius and Shade melted into a rocky outcrop, motionless as the rotor wash thundered past. The danger was close. Too close. They pressed forward, muscles burning with exhaustion, lungs stinging with sand. The extraction point loomed ahead. Dilapidated hangar half buried in dunes. They sprinted, slipping through the crumbled walls and into shadowed ruins. Inside, the hangar was a cavern of rust and dust, a ghost relic of forgotten wars. Equipment lay scattered, broken. Above, a faint, blue glow pulsed from a concealed panel as an emergency beacon. Shade moved swiftly, bypassing the aged security protocols with fingers steady despite the storm's chaos. The beacon blinked green. Help was coming. Minutes felt like hours as they waited, breathing shallow, eyes locked on the ruined entrance. The storm outside howled with renewed fury. Then a thundering roar announced the arrival. A convoy of rugged all-terrain vehicles barreled through the desert, engines screaming defiance against the tempest. The convoy screeched to a halt. A tall figure stepped forward up, commanding, silent. His presence radiated calm amid chaos. A signal was exchanged, a brief, "No dough." Then the vehicles turned, engines growling as they swept Darius and Shade away from the storm RTM's grasp. Inside the lead vehicle, the atmosphere was tense but purposeful. The Nova Prime vial was secured within an armored containment unit, shielded against shocks and interference. Darius studied the armored windows as the desert blurred past. His mind raced, calculating every risk, every possible outcome. Langdon TM's network was fractured but not broken. Nova TM's threat was no longer theoretical. It was real, mobile, and deadly. They had the weapon, but the world TM's fate was still uncertain. The convoy raced through mountain passes and hidden trails, avoiding satellite detection. At a remote airfield hidden within a valley, they transferred to a stealth aircraft, designed to slip through radar like a shadow. The engines hummed softly as the plane lifted into the night sky, leaving the desert behind. Above the clouds, the mood shifted. The sterile cabin was filled with a quiet determination. Darius and Shade prepared their next move, our plans to dismantle the network that sought to weaponize Nova on a global scale. They were no longer fugitives. They were the last line of defense. In a hidden bunker far across the ocean, Langdon watched the retreat with cold fury. His plans were set, but one variable remained: the unpredictable force of Darius Black. The chessboard was reset. The final gambit was unfolding. Back aboard the plane, Darius opened the cryo case briefly, inspecting the vial. The Nova compound glowed faintly, a reminder of both power and peril. He sealed it again, his jaw set with iron resolve. Outside, the first light of dawn pierced the clouds, a new day breaking over a world on the brink. The fight was far from over, but hope remained. A spark in the darkness, ready to ignite change. As the aircraft vanished into the horizon, Darius Black stared forward, ready to face whatever came next. The storm had passed, but the war had only just begun. The end. Like what you see? Hit that like button. Subscribe for more awesome content. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Join the journey. Like, subscribe, and share. New adventures every week. Don't miss out. Subscribe.